I do indeed, David. We are very lucky in that we have a cat in a tree that is as, well, epic as you could ever ask for at sunset. So Tingana is up there, precariously balanced, I might add, as well as his warthog. In fact, I actually think if he's not careful and he doesn't keep his paw on that head of the warthog, it's going to drop down and there's going to be two very happy hyena that are going to be just underneath there waiting for that carcass to drop. He's gone from having it perfectly kind of balanced over the branch to now literally the whole thing hanging off bar the head, and one more jolt and I reckon it's going to go crashing to the ground, and that's going to be the end of his little warthog meal. So Tingana, be careful. You're going to have to keep your paw on its head if you are to try and kind of keep it. Now, we are parked quite far away, and there was a reason for it, is that if we got a bit closer, I was imagining that we would probably have to see through all of those branches. So we parked quite a long way, as you can see, and it's just so that we can have a nice clear view of his head and his body while he feeds, rather than being underneath there and having branches all over his face. So you might see it would be a bit difficult for Seb to get too close into what's going on, but you know, we try and do the best we can. Anyway, he's tucking into around this sort of the neck and shoulder area, and I suppose there's still a lot of meat there. I'm actually very surprised with how much meat is still on this carcass, given that he's had it for 2 days now. So I believe it wasn't killed yesterday morning, it was the morning before, and so I mean that's a long time for this carcass to have been there. Tingana, you seem like you're getting into more of a mess than actually sorting it out. What are you doing? This is not exactly a graceful display, is it? Now, normally leopards are very graceful when they kind of hang carcasses and move around in trees, but this afternoon Tingana is not showing grace at all. But you can see that meat is not exactly healthy anymore. It's swollen and it's kind of expanding, so it must be fairly rotten after the heat that we've had over the last 2 days. That can't be very pleasant at all. But if you're a leopard, I suppose that's, well, good tasty food, and then he's going to kind of hoover that down and he'll eat around those cheek areas. One thing about a warthog though is that it looks like a lot of meat there, but actually there's not that much. Their skull is quite big and dense, and so you might find that he's not going to be able to actually have that much food in that area. So there's still enough to feed for probably tomorrow, but it's not as much as I think we first thought. It's mostly just its head. So, Teresa, we don't know exactly, unfortunately. We don't know, where he was born or what his age is exactly. We surmise and we go according to various physiological features that we've seen on him. And so we think that he's roughly around 12 years old. He could be a little bit younger. He could be about 11 or slightly older, but I don't think so. When we first started to see him, he was a lot smaller than what he is now. His ears were pretty intact. He didn't have a massive dewlap just yet, and so he must have been around sort of 4. We guessed 4 or 5 years old when he first arrived, and that would then make him 11, 12 now. So that's where we kind of reckon he is at. It really is amazing to think, actually, that when I remember seeing him for the first time, how shy and how he just did not want to did not want to know vehicles at all. I remember seeing him on Elephant Plains' airstrip for the very first time. And he lay there in this little patch of grass because he was hunting impalas, and we then spotted him, and he was very upset by this, and he lay there with his ears flat and his eyes just staring at us through this grass and into the night. And only once the night kind of rolled in did he start to every now and then lift his head up and start to show he was relaxing a little bit. But subsequently after that, we started to see him more and more and more, obviously, and it was always a struggle to try and find him. He used to run away from the cars. He used to be very difficult, and I can't remember what the kind of breaking point was. I think he might have been mating with Salahesh. Might have been the first time where he really kind of got followed for 3-4 days straight. And then he started from there being okay, and a few kills and carcasses later. At that stage, he was starting to kill quite big animals. He used to often target things like wildebeest, kudu, nyala, and so we used to find him on these big carcasses, and his love for food and his sausaging ability outweighed his kind of fear of the cars, and so that's where it kind of started, and eventually now he's at this most relaxed leopard that you can imagine. And so it just goes to show that it is possible even when it's an older individual. And so that skittish female that we saw, she could theoretically become relaxed if time was spent with her. The thing is though, is I very seldom seen skittish females become relaxed. It's generally the males that are more relaxed, and it's because the likes of relaxed females that they mate with, and the males generally bring down big carcasses that they kind of tend to relax a lot easier then, as well as the fact that they get dominant in an area, and that kind of gives them a bit of confidence. Whereas females, when they're skittish, it's very seldom that you get them to actually come right and to be a little bit more sort of calm around vehicles. Although it is possible, it just takes a little bit more effort than with the males itself. But wouldn't it be nice if we could relax that female at some point, especially if she's spending time in that northeastern corner of Djuma? So Pradeep, who's 6 years old, why do some animals travel at night? Well, Pradeep, there's various reasons for various animals traveling at night. Most of it, though, is that it's a time when certain animals have an advantage, and so basically, like a leopard or a lion or an owl, their eyesight is very good at night, and they're able to see a lot better than the animals that they're hunting. And so you find most of the animals that move around at night generally are predators, and the reason is that they can move around, it's under the cover of darkness, so they're far more camouflaged. It's very difficult for the prey animals to see them, and they can then get much closer and be able to hunt and find the food a little bit easier, and so that's why they move around quite a bit at night. So it's a very clever thing for predators to do. Some of the other animals that move around, like things like porcupines that are not predators, for them, the way that they are colored and the way that they kind of like to go about things, they would be easily caught by other animals during the day. Because they're a little bit slower moving, it would be easy for animals to spot them and then go after them. So they come out in the darkness to be able to stay away from predators. So even though some predators hunt at night, porcupines come out because they know that they can camouflage quite well at night, and they can move around fairly undetected, as opposed to during the day where birds of prey can spot them and various other things as well. So that's why most of the animals move around at night, is generally because it suits their lifestyle and the way that they like to go find food. It also means that they can hide away a little bit better, and their eyesight and their senses, so their hearing, their noses, their eyes, are all adapted and designed to basically, or evolved to be able to survive in those darker conditions, so they can see very well, hear very well, smell, and that's why they move around at night. Tingana is really feasting at the moment. He's guzzling down big chunks. So what I think is going to happen here is he's going to eat quite a bit. He's going to probably fill up that belly even more, and then I think he'll plop down, and then we've got a 50-50 chance of him striding off for water. Often they do, after a bit of a feed, go and have some water, or he's going to end up just going and flopping down somewhere at the bottom. It depends how the hyenas react to him coming down the tree, and it depends on how much food he actually feels like guzzling down. If he fills his tummy too much, we might not see him go for water. So Dina K, the first time I saw Tingana was in 2011, I think was the first time. 2011, yep. So that is what, 7 years of knowing Tingana, which is a fair amount of time, really. So it's quite surreal actually to think that I watched a leopard kind of do 7 years of its life, which is more than it's more than half of its lifespan. You've kind of spent time with it, which is very, very cool, and particularly a leopard like Tingana. So yeah, I've been very fortunate. Thandi, I've known her for longer. The first time I saw Thandi was in 2010. So she's almost 8 years of seeing Thandi. So there's a few leopards that are around that I spent a lot of time with. Shadow was obviously one of them. Karula also was, those were all in 2010 was the first time